Greetings, Wambui Bahati here. Welcome to Wambui Made It. Today, I'm introducing a new series on this channel, and that series is about sewing. Now, I'm going to be gearing most of the videos and the tutorials toward beginner sewers. I'm going to try to hold your hand and walk you step by step through what you have to do in order to have a joyful sewing experience. However, I do believe that no matter what your sewing level is, you will find something here of interest for you as well. I've heard many sewers who are experienced say that they enjoy sewing, but with their busy schedules, they just don't have time to sew. So what I'm offering is some easy sewing machine projects, meaning there are going to be some quality, beautiful projects that are simple and easy to do, meaning that you can do a sewing project and get your sewing experience on and get to your sewing machine and sew something without having to get all involved in some big complicated project. So I hope that the experienced sewers will also join us over here as well. Now for the beginner sewers, I'm going to guide you as best I can. The one thing I won't be able to do is work specifically with you on the type of sewing machine that you have. There are so many types of sewing machines out there, but what I can do is work with you generally about sewing machines in general, and also give you some tips and hints about how to get the information that you need for a particular sewing machine that you may have. In this first video, I'm going to be introducing some of the tools of the sewing trade. So with all of that said, without further ado, let's just get to it. I give you some of the sewing tools of the trade. Fabric. The fabric we use is going to be important because the fabric is the material that we're going to build or make our project with. So if you want to have a good end product, we've got to start with a good beginning product. We've got to have good materials. Now, there are some fabrics that are very inexpensive, very cheap, and they're good for practicing. You want to practice your stitches, you want to see what your machine can do, then that's great. But when you're making a project, even though we're going to be doing simple, easy sewing machine projects, you're going to be putting your heart and soul into it. So you want to have a product that you're going to be proud of, even if you keep it for yourself or if you should decide to give it away as a gift. You want it to be a really great product. So the best thing to start with is good quality fabric. I recommend starting off with 100% cotton, especially if you're a beginner sewer, cotton. But for the projects that we're going to be doing, cotton is going to be our go-to fabric. Now, like I said, you don't want to get the cheapest fabric. You do want to get a good quality 100% cotton fabric. That's what I recommend. Now, in order to make it even easier for you, I recommend that you go to the fabric store or a quilting store and ask for fat quarters or a fat quarter. This is what fat quarters look like. These are fat quarters. It's going to make it even easier for you because these fabrics are pre-cut into the size, I believe it's like 18 by 22, somewhere in there. That's what the fat quarters are. And the reason I recommend the fat quarters too is because instead of just buying a giant yard or a couple of yards of fabric to make projects with, when you get the fat quarters, they are pre-cut, like I said, and you get usually a package. You can get one single fat quarter at some quilting stores, but usually you're going to get a package of about 4. I think this one has 20. Came with 20 fat quarters, and look, they're all so beautiful. And they're just a variety of beautiful themes for your fat quarters and colors. So find a theme, find some colors that you like, and get you a bunch of fat quarters. Now they also come in colors and they also come in solids. Okay, so at the quilting store, for sure, they will have fat quarters, but you can find them at most fabric stores. And this is going to make it a lot easier for you because here's a fat quarter that's cut. So it's pre-cut. Our projects are going to be small. So the fat quarters are already pre-cut, meaning you're not having to deal with a very large piece of fabric. This is the size of the fabric that you're going to be dealing with for the projects, and these are already pre-cut for you because they're fat quarters. And so that's what I recommend if you are going to be doing the easy sewing machine projects. Then I recommend 100% cotton and get yourself some good quality fat quarters, and you're going to be ready to go. Once you have your fabric, don't do anything yet. Once you have the fabric, before you cut, measure, pin, before you make a stitch anywhere, the first thing you want to do once you have your fabric is you want to wash your fabric. You want to wash your fabric for a number of reasons. It's going to release any dyes that may be trapped in the fabric. It's going to release any chemicals that may be trapped in there. And the main thing is that it's going to shrink the fabric ahead of time. So if any shrinkage is going to occur when you wash your fabric, it's going to shrink before you make your project. So you don't want to make something and then give it to someone and they wash it and it shrinks all up. So that way, washing the fabric, you avoid a shrinkage after it's done because you will have pre-shrunk the fabric. So that's very important before you get started. Once you have the fabric that you want, before you do anything, wash your fabric. Easy sewing projects, tools of the trade. First thing you want to have are some good scissors. You want really good scissors, sharp scissors. You want scissors that are for fabric, and you want to dedicate them to the fabric, meaning that when you are a sewer or a person who sews, you want to have a pair of scissors that is just for your fabric, only fabric scissors. Do not let anybody open a package with them. And don't you open a package with them. Don't use them for anything except for fabric. They're going to stay sharper, longer, and they're going to give you a better cutting experience. So the one thing you want to have is a good pair of scissors, and only use your sewing scissors when you are cutting fabric. Okay? Now there is another type of scissor that eventually you may want to have. These are called pinking shears. And I don't know if you can see there the edge. See, when you cut with these, it's going to make the edges cut in little triangle shapes along the edge. And what that is going to do is that it's going to keep the fabric from unraveling. So these are pinking shears. These are not something that's you have to have right away, but it is something you should consider adding to your sewing arsenal if you enjoy making projects. It's going to make the ends less fray less, and in some cases it can save you a little time because you're not having to always sew to hide the raveling edges. Okay, pinking shears. So you want scissors for fabric, but these are pinking shears. Okay. Thread is real important. It is key. It is the product that is going to hold our product together. So just like I mentioned when we were talking about fabrics, you don't want to get the least expensive, or shall I say the cheapest thread out there. You do want to get a kind of quality thread. If you see a bargain at your local store and they're selling 20 spools of thread for $5, you might want to rethink that, unless it's a store that's going out of business and they're just having to mark down everything so they can get rid of it. But you do want to have some thread that's pretty quality. There are lots of types of quality threads in your fabric stores and your quilting stores. So go in and talk to the people at the store about what quality threads would be best. Also, you want to consider your machine. Some threads work better in some machines than they do in other machines. I tend to use Gutterman thread, and I like this thread called Orifil. Orifil is what I started using when I was doing quilting. It is pretty pricey compared to some of the others, but just look in your store, your quilting store, your fabric store, and get a good quality thread, polyester, cotton, whatever your machine works best with. Okay, thread. This is the tool that can make the difference between whether your project looks homemade or looks professional. The iron. Iron is key. Iron is like number one. Wherever you are set up to sew, have an iron up. If you can't put your iron near you in your area, then whenever you decide you're going to sew, make sure you have your iron set up somewhere, because you're going to need your iron. Even if it means you have to go into another room to press what you just sewed, have an iron ready. Now, I especially like this iron because it's a cordless iron. This is a Panasonic cordless iron. And I especially like it because, as you can see, I can sew and I don't have to worry about cords getting in my way or anything like that. It has a little base that it comes on, and this heats up the iron. And then when you're ready to iron, you are cordless free. So I really love this iron. I recommend this iron. But to start with, just make sure you have a good iron that gives good heat, because like I said, the iron, and you're going to see, is the one thing that's going to make or break your project. Ironing is going to be key. It's going to make the difference between whether your project look like something you just made at home, or it can look like something that's real professional. Iron makes that difference. Measuring tools are important. You're going to want measuring tools. I have here a tape measure. I have several types of tape measures, and I also have rulers. A straight edge ruler is going to be important for our projects. It doesn't have to be any longer to begin with than a 12-inch ruler, but you do want a ruler with a straight edge. I have here some rulers I used to use when I did a lot of quilting, but these are quilting rulers, but I think they're really handy for making small projects, and it really helps you to see where you are in cutting things into shapes and pieces. We won't be doing a lot of that, but these rulers are really handy, and they do have a straight edge. They come in all sizes, and they are, when you first look at them, you go, ooh, because the price, they can be a little pricey. They are pricey, but I find that they have been invaluable and worth the price. So the main thing that you're going to need to start is some type of measuring tool. So you're will need either a tape measure or a ruler, but whatever you decide on you want to use, you do want to have some type of measuring tool with a straight edge for making straight lines. These are markers. Markers really make sewing life easy, because with these markers, these are especially markers that are made for fabric. Some of them can be erased, just like erasing a pencil. Some of them totally disappear once you put an iron on it. It just like disappears like magic. And then there are others that you have to put water on to wipe away. But you want to have some markers. Like I say, it's going to make your life a lot easier to be able to mark your fabric, knowing that you're not ruining your fabric because you have special markers. Again, at your quilting store or fabric store, find out about these markers and put them with your sewing tools. Two more things I want to mention before we move on from the tools and actually start making our project, and they are a seam ripper. This is going to be invaluable in the beginning, whether you're new or not. Just having a seam ripper and or snippers around are going to be very handy. What this is for is if you should do a seam and you want to rip it out for any reason, maybe it's not straight enough for you, or maybe you didn't mean to sew that seam in that particular place, you can just take the seam ripper and just rip it right out or snip it right out. I know sometimes I forget to make an opening large enough and that I want to use in order to turn my project. And so I can take these little rippers and I just go in and rip that seam and make it wide enough for me to do what I need to do. So seam ripper and snippers, yeah, get some. Straight pins. Straight pins are important because you're not only going to use these straight pins to pin your pattern to your fabric so that you can cut around and it doesn't move, but you're also going to use these pins a lot when you're putting the pieces of your project together before you sew them. You can use these pins to pin things in shape to see how they're going to look once they are sewn. And so you are also going to use these when you go to the sewing machine. It's going to hold everything in place until you're able to permanently sew it with the sewing machine. And so I have here also, my pins are on this magnetic base right here, and it's a way to keep up with my pins. And if I drop my pins, I just go over it with this magnetic piece right here, and it picks the pins out of the carpet or off the table for me right away. And so I have these pins. Pins last forever. I must have had these yellow tip pins for at least 10 years. And so recently I bought some new pins, and so these are what my new pins look like. And they have a little white head, so they, to me, look like they're just glamorous. But any straight pins, get some straight pins. It doesn't matter, just straight pins. The last thing I want to mention before we move on from tools of the trade are these little clips. These clips can be used in the place of straight pins in some instances. You can't use this to pin down a fabric, but you can use these to hold your pieces of fabric together while you take them to the sewing machine. And as you sew, it's much easier sometimes to remove these clips than it is to remove the pins, depending on the item that you're sewing. I've had a good time working with them. I enjoy working with them, and I just wanted to make you aware of them and introduce you to them if you have never seen them or worked with them before. They're a lot of fun, and they're also cute and just pretty to have around. Now, I've seen them in stores, and you get a few for a few dollars, a few in a package for a few dollars. Well, I got this whole big thing right here with all these clips from somewhere. I ordered it somewhere on Amazon, and it was just, you got this whole big package for just a few dollars, and it came in this little cute case, and yeah, it's so cute. Anyways, I just love having it around. They just look so pretty, and I love working with it. So I did want to mention this before we moved on. Okay, so those are some of the main tools of the trade.